Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. Another look at the recent signings MVP has made, the fighters they've added to their female stable of fighters, of which there are many. And I want to look at each one, each individual signing, and evaluate its merits.
Let's talk about Jasmine Artiga.
Jasmine Artiga, WBA champion in the super flyweight division, of which there are 4 champions, and Jasmine is just one.
Jasmine's got the WBA. Mexico's own Ashley Gonzalez has the WBC, Japan's own Mizuki Hiruta has the WBO, and Mexico's own Irma Garcia has the IBF. Hard to say which one of these belt holders, which one of these champions is the best in show. There's really only one way to make that determination.
They have to fight. We have to see who the last woman standing will be. I won't deny that I have my favorites or my favorite.
Who's your favorite?
Mizuki Hiruta of Japan, the WBO champion, who has a bubbling personality and is a pleasure to watch inside the ring, showing improvement fight by fight since she enlisted the aid of Manny Robles, but that is neither here nor there. This segment is about Jasmine.
Jasmine Artiga sports a professional record of 13 wins with no losses, 1 draw, 6 knockouts.
WBA champion as of March this year, when she fought Regina Chavez and won a majority decision. She's very fortunate to do so because I saw that fight, and to me, Jasmine should have lost. But she won.
WBA champion. What is the virtue in signing her?
She's got a fight coming up this month on the 23rd against Lynn Sandstorm. I expect that Jasmine Artiga will win that fight. And the virtue in signing her is it gets MVP's foot in the door of the super flyweight division to start staging fights there and help to get those fighters more of a profile.
After the Sandstorm fight, MVP should look to make a fight between Jasmine Artiga and Irma Garcia,
the IBF champion.
Now, why go after the IBF champion? Why Irma Garcia specifically?
Because she's getting long in the tooth. She's 44 years old. She's the oldest fighter with a belt at this weight.
She already has 5 losses, making this a more winnable fight. I'd say more winnable than an Ashley Gonzalez fight or a Mizuki Hiruta fight.
This one is not as big of a gamble. If the goal is to promote Jasmine Artiga and put her in the biggest fights you can put her in, then you need to tread carefully because Jasmine is not that experienced a fighter. She only has about 14 fights.
She needs more.
To try and get her a leg up on the other champions, Ashley Gonzalez, Mizuki Hiruta.
She needs more.
And even then, it's not a guarantee that Jasmine will prevail over those other champions, but that's the route they should take. After the Lynn Sandstorm fight, they should target Irma Garcia.
They also signed former WBA bantamweight champion Shannon Courtenay. A curious signing.
I have to be honest, there are a lot of other fighters out there that I would have signed myself before signing Shannon Courtenay. Fighters that are younger or fighters that are better trained, have better amateur backgrounds or higher ceilings. I would have signed a couple of fighters before I signed Shannon, but they decided to pick her up.
What's the virtue in signing Shannon? The one thing I will give Shannon Courtenay is that she's often in entertaining fights. Win or lose, whether it's the Ebony Bridges fight that she won or the Jamie Mitchell fight that she lost, she is an entertaining fighter to watch, sporting a professional record of 9 wins with 3 losses and no draws, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 13 professional bouts, last in action earlier this year in March opposite the ring veteran journeywoman Beck Connolly, who Shannon decisioned over 6 rounds.
At what weight is Shannon campaigning now?
Really not sure. She used to hold the WBA title at bantamweight, but I don't think she can make bantamweight anymore. That was 2 or 3 years ago, and her last fight was all the way up there at super feather. Shannon weighed in at about 130 pounds for the Beck Connolly fight.
Fat chance that she wins a title or titles from the reigning undisputed champion at that weight, Alicia Baumgartner. The only way that Shannon wins a belt at 130 is if Alicia moves up and the belts go vacant, and even then, it's not a guarantee. Shannon's gonna have to fight somebody.
I don't know where she's going to campaign moving forward. Whether it's 130 or if she can drop down to 126, maybe even 122, she doesn't win a belt from any of the champions at those weights. That's just me being honest. And it's not because she's not a decent fighter. She's a decent fighter, but those are deep divisions.
She's not going to beat Ellie Scottney or Mayeli Flores at 122. No, she's not going to beat Amanda Serrano or Tiara Brown at 126.
Not going to beat Alicia Baumgartner at 130.
So I'm not sure what the path is going to be and what they can do for her, because her best bet to get at a title is if one goes vacant, and there are no vacant titles right now. What they can do is maybe have her fight 1 or 2 times on some prelim cards to build herself back up until the coast is clear.
Because it's slim pickings right now.
We'll see what happens. As stated, that's one of the more curious signings that MVP has made. So we'll see what they do and what they can do for the career of Shannon Courtenay. Men's welterweight news. Rolando Romero has been officially elevated to full WBA welterweight world champion. The WBA has elevated Rolando Romero from its secondary regular belt holder status to full world champion, a title previously held by Ennis, according to the sanctioning body's end-of-the-month ratings update published on Thursday. Romero, 17-2 with 13 knockouts, won the secondary WBA title in May when he dropped Ryan Garcia and scored a unanimous decision win to headline a ring card in New York's Times Square. And bear in mind that the title that he won in that fight was manufactured. It was manufactured out of thin air.
That means that going in, neither Ryan or Rolly were the WBA regular champion. The WBA literally made up a belt for them to fight for.
Ryan was coming off of a suspension for a doping violation, and Rolly was just moving up from 140 up to 147, but the WBA so decided that a version of their title should be on the line in that fight. Romero and Garcia are currently in advanced talks to stage a rematch as early as December.
Ennis notched the WBA title back in April by stopping then-champion Montes Stanionis in 6 rounds. Ennis also won the vacant Ring Magazine title in the process, adding to his collection of belts, which already included the IBF title at the time as well. But the Philadelphia native announced last month that he's moving to 154. The other champions in the welterweight division include WBC champion Mario Barrios, who just fought to a draw against Manny Pacquiao, and WBO champion Brian Norman, who faces former 2-division champion Devin Haney on November 22nd as part of a stacked Riyadh season show in Saudi Arabia. The IBF title is currently vacant, but it will be contested in the rematch between Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crocker. So let me start off by saying that fighters getting elevated to full champion status is pretty commonplace in the sport of boxing. It happens all the time, though sometimes with more legitimacy than others. Because in Rolly, what you're talking about,
Understand that Rolly and Ryan, when they fought for that vacant WBA Reggie belt, neither one of those guys did anything in the welterweight division to be fighting for a belt there anyway. Any version of a belt. Neither one did nothing.
nada.
So you go up there and you fight a guy basically moving up in weight like you are, not a real welterweight. Tack on that he's coming off a doping violation. Why is the WBA making it so easy for a guy like this to win any version of their belt?
Because they're complicit with doping in the sport of boxing.
And even worse, that at the time they made this decision, there was already a mandatory challenger in the queue. Shakram Gaasov was in position to fight for that belt.
Yeah, what happened to him?
Now, what they should have did was order a fight between Rolly and Shakram Gaasov for the newly vacated title, but it would seem they were more in a hurry to give Rolly that belt. Why?
Because he's more popular than Shakram, and they figure they can get bigger sanctioning fees from Rolly than they can from Shakram.
Two-division champion Devin Haney reacted to the news by saying, "So, is he a two-time email champion?"
Would seem that he is.
So when I say that, while titles go vacant all the time, and we see stuff like this all the time, that doesn't make it right. And that doesn't give Rolly any credibility as a champion in the welterweight division when, by all accounts, he never actually beat a welterweight to have a title there.
This is a guy, he just keeps failing forward.
At the expense of the WBA's credibility as an alphabet organization, and at the expense of boxing as a sport, if you even want to call it that. And maybe the WBA don't care about their integrity or public perception of them.
They don't care what me and you think, so long as the fighters give them that brown paper bag money. They don't care.
I don't think they have a reputation to protect, but boxing's reputation as a sport still lingers, hanging on by a thread. In no other organized sport could an athlete call himself a champion of any kind this way. You can't do this in the NBA playoffs or the Super Bowl, the World Series. You can't win a chip this way, but in boxing you can.
Can't do it in hockey. Can't do it in the World Cup. You have to earn it.
But in boxing you can. In boxing you can become a champion this way by failing forward. So perhaps it's no coincidence that boxing as a sport has been relegated to the background of the sporting world.
Because this is not sport.
Because what it effectively eliminates is the competitive element that's intended to draw a crowd. What is there to see?
A two-time email champion?
Are we intended to throw him a ticker tape parade now for becoming a champion this way, having not fought a single welterweight, a legitimate welterweight, to call himself a welterweight champion? It is absolutely ridiculous.
Boxing as a sport keeps on shooting itself in the foot because it's the people within boxing that make this kind of stuff possible, and when it happens, everybody kind of just shrugs their shoulders.
Oh well.
It's a joke. Boxing is a joke that isn't funny.
And don't expect Rolando Romero to start trying to hunt down the other belts, pin down fights with the other champions. That's not what he's in it for. To establish himself as the best in show?
And then wonder why American boxing has been relegated to a niche sport that only a small percentage of the population even watch.
Hey, Rolly's not going to do that. Rolly doesn't care about establishing himself as the best in show. He's not going to try to shoot for undisputed or anything like that, and everybody knows.
Because he knows underneath it all, he shouldn't even have that belt.
It's just another ridiculous story under the big top. In the circus that is boxing.
Because it's not a sport.
Men's junior middleweight news. Former unified welterweight champion Jaron Ennis, upon his ascent to the junior middleweight division, has come in at number 2 in the WBA's current rank standings. His status as a unified champion and Ring Magazine champion in the previous weight class likely has a lot to do with that cushy spot that he just landed, having not had a fight as a junior middleweight, but still, he comes in at number 2, and Germany's own Abbas Aru is ranked at number 1.
And Abbas actually has a fight coming up at the Caribe Royale Hotel and Casino in Florida, opposite the Ring Cuba zone, Ioannis Teles, meaning he is unavailable for a Jaron Ennis fight. So who will Jaron Ennis fight?
They're saying he's going to fight Jesus Ramos, with Josh Kelly having passed on an offer to fight Boots Ennis. Ennis's team are now in negotiations to face Mexico's own contender, Jesus Ramos, in October. And Jesus is one of the guys I mentioned. One of the guys I said I would prefer to see Jaron Ennis fight him because it makes for a more solid acid test now that he's campaigning as a junior middleweight. Josh Kelly is little more than a welterweight who moved up in weight like Ennis moved up in weight. I want to see Ennis against the 154-pounder.
The real one. Josh Kelly doesn't qualify. He may have been there for 3 years and 7 fights, but he's done very little to establish himself as one of the best junior middleweights in the world, whereas Jesus
actually comes in at number 4, 2 spots behind Jaron Ennis. So it's conceivable that a fight between them could rank a #1 contender. Even if Abbas Baru is there now, this is the WBA we're talking about. That could change.
That can always change.
Between now and October, if this fight actually gets made, I wouldn't be surprised if they manufacture a WBA Reggie title for Ennis and Ramos like they did for Ryan and Rolly. Jesus Ramos, who sports a professional record of 23 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 19 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 24 professional bouts, his lone defeat, a controversial decision loss to Erickson Lubricant in a fight that I saw, in a fight that I think Jesus should have won. By all accounts, Jesus should still be an unbeaten fighter.
That was approximately 2 years and 4 fights ago that he dropped that decision to Lubin. He's rebounded off that loss, and he's currently on a 3-fight winning streak. Last in action in March of this year opposite the Ranguido Scram, who Jesus knocked out in the 7th round of a contest scheduled for 10.
He's actually managed to knock out 4 of his last 6 opponents. This guy, he can punch. Now, what's supposed to make him head and shoulders a better choice than Josh Kelly? It's not just because he's a bona fide junior middle, it's because he's been in there with guys. He gave Joey Spencer his first professional loss. By all accounts, he won that Lubin fight, even if he didn't get the decision, and more recently he took on a former champion in Jason Rosario, who he stopped in 8 rounds.
So, potentially targeting a fight with Jesus Ramos and coming in at #2 via the WBA's ranked standings, it would seem that Jaron Ennis has changed his course, because initially the fight with Josh Kelly was supposed to be a WBO final eliminator. You get the sense that if he does fight Jesus, it will be via the WBA.
And who's the WBA champion?
Terrence Crawford, who we all know that very soon will drop that WBA title when he enters the ring to face Canelo Alvarez at 168. At his age, it's not likely that he drops back down to 154 to defend a title or unify a title there. Thus, Jaron Ennis is positioning himself to pick up that vacant title when it becomes vacant.
It's a smart play, and it's a good choice in Jesus Ramos. One could argue that a Jesus Ramos fight is a good rehearsal for a Virgil Ortiz fight. There are similarities there between Jesus and Virgil.
We all know that Jaron Ennis recently came under fire for rejecting a Virgil Ortiz fight. The rumor is that he wanted 2 tune-ups first. I wouldn't call Jesus Ramos a tune-up fight. That's an acid test.
Not a tune-up fight. That's a fight. What makes it a fight is that Jesus Ramos is battle-tested. He's a tough customer, he's got power, and he's a bona fide junior middle. Jaron Ennis has largely benefited from his size and his power as a welterweight. He was one of the bigger welterweights, but he's not so big at junior middle to where Jesus Ramos might be able to push him. Stylistically, it's a fight that favors Boots. Boots tends to do well against aggressive fighters, but physically,
Jesus is a bigger guy than any guy he's fought.
Boots' power don't translate from 147 up to 154. If he can't land with the same authority, he could be in trouble. So that's what makes this an acid test.
I like this fight.
I'm hoping that the rumors check out and they make it.